Hey everybody, welcome to the Green Room for DisrupTV. Today we're going to talk about Elon Musk's adventures in Twitter. Just kidding. That was last week and the week before that and the week before that. Anyways, we're in the Green Room. We're going to say hi to our guests and talk about where everyone's coming from, what's going on, and what's new. So let's start with Mark. Mark, where are you calling in from? What are we talking about today?
I'm calling in from New York City, from downtown Manhattan, and we're going to be talking about my new book, The Synergy Solution: How Companies Win the Mergers and Acquisitions Game, and the problems and the solutions around mergers.
Very, very cool. Thank you for being here. Sandy, where are you calling in from? What are you talking about?
Oh, Ray, I am actually calling in from sunny Scottsdale today, getting ready for the weekend. And I would love to dish on Web3, everyone's favorite subject, I think.
An amazing subject. That's what we're all talking about. All right, Kim, where are we calling in from?
I am calling in from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I wish I was in sunny Scottsdale. And I'm here with Kate. And, we want to talk a little bit about the partnership between IT and marketing, because we think it's just so important, and how we partner together and work together to navigate the last few years. So excited to share some lessons.
Kate, where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from beautiful Duxbury, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. Awesome. All right. East Coast strong. Here we go. All right. Back to you, Hannah. Let's start.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send your questions to Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests using hashtag DisrupTV, and we'll do our best to answer them in the next hour. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Surviving and Thriving. Ray's a regular television, technology, and business contributor on Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, CNBC, Wall Street Journal. He's a global sought-after keynote speaker, and in my humble opinion, one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with my awesome co-host, co-founder, Vala Afshar. He's also the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce, but he's the author of The Pursuit of Social Business Excellence. If you haven't read it, definitely get a copy of it. Executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational and insightful tweets. When he's not hosting, keynoting, or leading events at Salesforce, you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg, and of course, posting his insightful analyses on ZDNet. But like we always say, it's not about us. It's about our awesome guests. And who do we have today to kick it off?
How lucky are we to have two power couple thought leaders on our show? I'm going to start with introducing Kim Salem-Jackson, who's the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Akamai, leading Akamai's global marketing efforts, including brand purpose, corporate communications, product marketing, field marketing, digital marketing, and customer enablement programs. Kim's a data-driven global marketing executive whose 20-year career, Kim must have started at 15, has been focused on activating marketing as growth engine, amplifying marketing impacts on business. Kim helped lead the launch and adoption of Akamai's enriched mission and purpose, driving commitment to shared values both in market and within the company. You can follow her on Twitter at KSalem09. Welcome, Kim, to DisrupTV.
Thank you.
And with Kim, we have Kate Prouty, SVP CIO at Akamai Technologies, As CIO, Kate oversees Akamai's information technology organization, responsible for business transformation, including global strategy, development, operation of applications, and IT infrastructure. Kate may have been employee number 3. Kate joined Akamai in 1999. The company was founded in 1998. 23 years, and has led a long and distinguished career at a company leading the transformation of Akamai's business process with an emphasis on flexibility, agility, and user experience. Those are such incredible pillars for successful CIOs. Kate co-chairs the Executive Women's Network at Akamai and is a member of the board of directors for a nonprofit organization, Delta Projects, which supports and empowers people with intellectual challenges. Welcome, Kate and Kim, to DisrupTV.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hey, we're really excited to have you here. And as many folks know about Akamai, I mean, you guys power and make sure that the internet is up and running for so many different world. Yeah, for so many folks around the world. And, you know, and one of the interesting stats that we've been looking at and of course aggregating is that internet usage is up anywhere between 60 to 70%, depending who's measuring. That cybersecurity attacks, that, you know, just the need to actually go into more digital operations, digital business models, that's been driving a lot of growth. And so we want to take some time to actually talk to you guys about what's going on, what's happening out in the market, but more importantly about this partnership between IT and marketing. So I'm going to start with Kim real quick. Well, Kim, how did IT and marketing partner to pivot and transform for employees and customers? I mean, this is like a tough thing. Most companies struggle to actually try to get to this relationship to be able to work with each other. And so I'll start with you, Kim.
Sure. It is a tough thing. But first, I have to say, internally, Kate and I might now have to call ourselves the power couple. So thank you.
You are.
I think that's how we'll introduce ourselves in meetings. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. And, you know, we all know that great marketing happens at that intersection point between art and science. But the secret to success, I believe, lies in those insights that you get from great data and a best-in-class rev tech stack. So as CMO, this paradigm makes the partnership with IT and my power couple friend Kate that much more critical, which is why we're excited to be here. So, you know, with that backdrop, you know, what do we do at Akamai to pivot and adapt? So, you know, first we listened to the marketplace and our customers. And that led us to reimagine our rev tech stack, our go-to-market, our data, our digital innovations, and even our narrative. And I think we'll talk a little later about purpose. But when I say listen, I mean, we monitored those leading indicators. They were like gold to us, because if you waited for the lagging indicators, you're pretty much dead in the water. And so constantly looking for those green shoots. The next thing we did, like everybody in the world, we pivoted to a digital first strategy. That certainly wasn't anything new, but we focused on making those digital experiences emulate physical experiences, because we quickly realized, and I'm sure all of you did too, that the world was so hungry for a human experience or a micro experience. So we wanted to deliver that to the audiences we serve, just, you know, versus just online content. We also got a lot smarter about our data and tried to get a really deep understanding of customer behavior and their journey to us and with us, because otherwise it was a dark funnel, and the dark funnel makes me crazy. Got to shine some light. So, you know, that resulted in us re-platforming our website, investing more in search, investing more in data science to predict that next best actions for customers and, you know, offer those personalized experiences. And then fast forward to today, I think digital, we know what I think, digital's core to our lives. So without throwing out 1,000 buzzwords, I think just to look at things like metaverse and NFTs, like it or hate it, I think there's going to be a shift in how people will interact with technology forever. You know, people invest their time and their money in these experiences. And as a marketer, and with my partner in IT, I'm always trying to stay ahead of those trends, meet people where they are, let them choose their own journey. So, you know, only with technology and a partnership with IT, I think, is that possible. So that's my
I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump here for When Harry Met Sally. So I don't know, Kate, what do you think? From your angle, what did it look like?
So I think, you know, in my role, I have many customers. And so we are, we're sometimes in the unenviable situation of trying to make everybody happy. And when I say everybody, I mean down to the individual employee and customer, which is really hard to do. So it's very, very helpful to have a great partner within the business. And so as an IT professional, we look at ourselves as strategic business partners. We're not just the techie folks that are kind of stitching things together. We really are trying to partner at a very different level with a level of business acumen, with a level of sort of consultative approach, so that we can help our business stakeholders get everything that they need to be most efficient and effective, but do it in a way that fits into our ecosystem the most, sort of smoothly, without creating any issues down the road, and maintaining really just a nice balance of giving folks what they absolutely need while also maintaining sort of the balance of the infrastructure of IT. I do have to pivot a little bit though and talk about the pandemic and some of the things that you brought up, because it really was for IT, we're in a very interesting situation where we are a security company. Akamai is a security company. And one of the things that we do is we are our customer one. So we are implementing all of Akamai's services on our own networks, including our security services. And we had really just embarked on this Akamai on Akamai project around network security, journey to zero trust. And so we had to accelerate that, tenfold. When everybody went remote, we sort of had to kind of get going, getting our enterprise security up and running, making sure we had good, what we call enterprise threat protection, which is really protecting our employees from doing silly things like clicking on phishing links or malicious, links on valid websites. So we worked really hard to get that done quickly. And then as we partnered with our friends in sales and marketing, we really came to understand very quickly that our customers were feeling the same pain. So we worked closely with our customers to help them sort of build out a blueprint to get themselves to a place where they could manage all of this remote work securely. And then at the same time, obviously there was the challenge of, just as you said, this ridiculous increase in internet traffic. Customers we were seeing people streaming, people gaming that have never gamed in their entire lives. We saw moms on TikTok with their daughters, and it was just like insanity. So as we were trying to support our customers through that by deploying servers as quickly as you can, offloading origin traffic to keep people just up and running, we also had a very interesting sort of opposite effect to some of our loyal customers. Were seeing the exact opposite. I mean, think about airlines and hospitality industry. They were losing business, and they were losing customers, and they were losing internet. Their internet traffic was grinding down to a halt. So we had to work with them as well to say, hey, we'll give you time and we'll give you room to get back on your feet. And that's that whole idea of really leading with humanity, both within your employee base and with your customers, definitely has reaped huge rewards for us.
That is amazing. I love that. I love that story of empathy and generosity. And the fact that, the Akamai superpower was this ability to decentralize delivery of services. And in a light switch about 2 years and 2 months ago, I guess March of 2020, the world went decentralized, digital only for many. So the pressure on CIOs to maintain an infrastructure that could scale and be secure and be decentralized was incredibly challenging. If you were a digital native company and technology company, I suppose easier for us. But your illustrious career, Kate, 23 years. I mean, no kidding. The company was built on your shoulder. That's pretty amazing. I'm sure you worked with many CMOs during the 23 years. How nice is it to have a CMO that's passionate about analytics and really wants to bring science to art of marketing? That's got to be refreshing. I'm not suggesting other CMOs weren't equally passionate, but I know Kim is absolutely data driven. So can you give advice to CIOs how they can connect with data driven CMOs and build this power couple relationship that you have at Akamai?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is to approach it from a business and a strategy perspective.
Mm.
I mean, of course, you need to have the sort of technical underpinnings to understand how to bring all the data together in a way that's meaningful and useful and, on demand and automated and all of that good stuff. But it really is about understanding the business. What is it they are trying to achieve? What information do CMOs like Kim need to most effectively get their work done, reach customers, reach prospects, understand how we're doing, how's our website doing, and how can we best attract our customers. It's really about, approaching it from a business perspective and not necessarily just about the bits and bytes of technology.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, this partnership that you guys had, I mean, this is
Kim Stevenson on the show, and she said there are no IT projects, there are just business projects. And I thought that was really great because, the language of business is finance, and you need to understand, it's not about the bits and bytes. Sorry, Ray, go ahead.
No. And we learned so much from our guests, and this is another great example. I mean, the way you guys are putting this together in terms of partnership. I mean, think about when you think about the shifts that are here, right? I mean, we're in what we call the great refactoring, right? The way we're working, when we work, where we work, even why we work, right? The business models are changing from digital channels to digital business models to real digital monetization. And more importantly, the way we look at work-life balance or the way we look at, mission and purpose are all changing. And so as you adjust through this change, I mean, are there things that you two have discovered along the way that you say, this is kind of how you adapt to that change? This is kind of keep the business continuity while you move forward. And more importantly, this is how you transform at the same time. I mean, none of these are easy concepts.
No.
Kate, do you want to?
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead,
sure.
Kate. So
I could go. Well, I'll start with your why.
Okay.
So it's funny, when I took over as CMO about a year ago, I didn't do the typical playbook, change the logo and the website and the colors. I wanted to kind of leverage what we had because I thought it was incredible and launch some big campaigns so more people knew about Akamai, because sometimes we're the best kept secret. And every idea we had kept falling short of greatness because we were missing our why. And so my new CMO playbook a year ago, if you asked me, was I planning on redefining our purpose and our mission, I would have said absolutely, positively not. But what became so clear to me, and I wish I could take credit for having a crystal ball, was that we as a company needed to define our why and what we made possible for the world versus just what we did. So we embarked on this purpose journey. And when I tell you I was naive, I thought I knew what purpose was. I had absolutely no idea. And we worked, I really did. I read books, I read articles, I interviewed people. And, it was really about finding that intersection point between our strengths and the impact we could have on the world. And for us to be able to articulate that, I think, was one of the most powerful things we could do, particularly in the middle of the Great Resignation, where, jobs were readily available. People were rethinking their careers. And, if they didn't work for a company that really stood for something, then they didn't want to stay. And I think marketers today have a huge responsibility on just the traditional job description to really be people ambassadors. Over the last 6 months, I think I said 1,000 times, one of my success criteria for a campaign was as much about attracting and retaining our talent and making them feel excited and empowered as it was about, acquiring new customers and increasing our ROI and conversion rates. So I just view the role of purpose and, marketers really driving that connection point is critical as bringing in the next dollar to the company. And, that comes with the partnership with IT too, because it takes an omni-channel approach to amplify that throughout the org. And so working with Kate has been fantastic.
That's awesome. I love it. Kate?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to follow that. I can't say it much better. I mean, I think, Ray, you used the word adaptable, and that's exactly right. I think if we've learned nothing, it's that we need to continue to be adaptable. And, I've learned that human beings are just incredibly adaptable and resilient. And, we went from one day you're in the office, the next day you're completely remote. And I think in that we, in all of the sort of ups and downs of the year that I just described, I think we had the most productive year or one of the most productive years in Akamai's history through all of that. So it just shows that, and as a company, we tried very hard to be empathetic and flexible and give people the room that they needed and the flexibility that they needed throughout this really difficult time. And it reaped its rewards. I mean, we, again, got it back tenfold. People are, not only just so appreciative of all of the flexibility, but they were so much more productive. And I think what we've learned now is that the horse is out of the barn. We've learned now how to work in an environment where we can be flexible. And if we don't continue to offer that flexibility to our employees, the companies that don't get that have really lost a huge opportunity, especially in this war for talent. To continue to enable that, and through technology, because again, the human connection is so important, and technology is the connector very often in the absence of being able to connect face to face. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, interesting times. Move forward. We got to continue on this path. You can't go backwards. There's no put the horse back in the barn.
Absolutely.
Well, Kim and Kate, thank you so much for being here. Kim Salem-Jackson, EVP and CMO, Akamai Technologies, and Kate Prouty, SVP and CIO, Akamai Technologies. Thanks so much for being here. And of course, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you both. Leading with purpose, being flexible, empathetic, agile. Akamai is lucky to have two extraordinary executives. This next guest is a Hall of Fame technologist and business leader. It's our pleasure to have Sandy Carter, who's the Senior Vice President and Channel Chief at Unstoppable Domains. Sandy's responsible for driving new partnerships and integrations for Web3. This is what we're going to talk about: blockchain and NFTs, white hot technologies. Sandy's mission is to onboard the world onto a decentralized web by building digital identity platform. Previously, Sandy was vice president for public sector partners at this small company called AWS or Amazon. During her tenure, Sandy grew AWS ecosystem rate by over 45%. Sandy was co-founder and CEO of startups in Silicon Valley. Sandy is the chairman of the board of Girls in Tech and an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon University, Silicon Valley. Sandy is also the author of Extreme Innovation. She's the founder of Unstoppable Woman of Web3. I love that. She's an award-winning executive. We only have a 20-minute segment, so I cut all her awards down to just a few to mention, including member of the Fortune magazine Most Powerful Woman, CNN Top 10 Most Powerful Women in Technology, Forbes Top Digital Influencer, 2022 Top Channel Chief, and much, much more. Please go read her bio. I'm not sure if Sandy ever sleeps. She's just continuously innovating. You can follow Sandy on Twitter at Sandy_Carter, CARTER. Welcome, Sandy, Hall of Fame technologist to DisrupTV. Sorry, I think you have you on mute. Yeah.
I am. And I said I was going to add to my resume now that I am on DisrupTV, which is such a phenomenal moment. Truly, I've waited years to be on your show. So
shame on us. Shame on us.
Thank you. Thank you.
You should have been on episode 1. I don't know what, massive oversight. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, thank you both for having me. I really am honored to be here.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here, and you're one of the hottest spaces, a space that both Vala and I track very carefully, and which is really this emerging area of what we call the metaverse and the metaverse economy, right? And as you know, and we've spoken about this. I mean, it's more than just glasses. It's more than just the worlds. It's more than NFTs. It's more than the DAOs. It's more than the Web 3.0 infrastructure. Something big is about to happen. And it must have been big enough for you to say, hey, I'm going to leave AWS, the small little company, where I've been like kicking butt. Why? So what got you excited about the space, and what got you excited about the company, Unstoppable?
Yeah. So first of all, hats off to all my colleagues at AWS. I couldn't have worked for a better company in the entire world. I learned so much from Amazon Web Services. When I was in my last role in AWS, I was there for almost 5 years. I was able to work with customers on blockchain. And as I was working with customers and partners on blockchain, I just got this bug. I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's a trusted network. It's storing all this data. It's immutable. It was just such an aha moment for me. So then what I started doing is a couple of side projects. I bought some crypto. I got rugged. Crypto was stolen.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. And
All of us have experienced this. Yeah.
I know. I think it's part of the rite of passage into the reverse economy, right? And I just got so addicted to it. So I had a couple of Web3 companies reach out to me. Some of them concerned me. One CEO said, I'll set up a Swiss bank account for you. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing that one. But then Matt Gald, who's the CEO and founder of Unstoppable Domains, came. He said, I'm going to fly up to Seattle. I'm going to take you to dinner. Just come and sit down, break bread with me, and I'll tell you what we're doing. And that was really the moment I decided Unstoppable was for me. Unstoppable Domains, we have domains that are Web3 domains with superpowers. But those domains act as your digital identity. And that's what got me so excited. An identity you could travel with you. You didn't have to log in separately. It was on the blockchain, decentralized, and just so much power and so much potential. So after that dinner, I was pretty much sold to come to Unstoppable. And that's why I'm here today.
He must be a great entrepreneur, CEO. I don't personally know him, but the fact that he could pull you out of AWS, because again, you were doing legendary work, growing the ecosystem, growing the partnerships, leading events and kicking off, and just an extraordinary ambassador for Amazon, for AWS. Ray started the conversation talking about, some of these emerging technologies that are dominating the news cycle, from the meta to crypto to NFTs. Can you assume my 18-year-old daughter, who's a freshman at Bentley, is here and she wants to learn about Web3. Is there a way you can help me better explain to her, what's Web3? Why does it matter? And why she should take some courses at Bentley on Web3 if they offer it?
Yeah, definitely introduce her to me, because I want to do that for sure. This is the way I describe Web3. If you want to know in one word the difference between Web2 and Web3, the difference is ownership. And what I mean by that is Web3 does decentralize the internet, but it's really the goal of that decentralization that matters. It allows for individual ownership of your identity and your personal data. And from what I've seen, that's enough to get so many people so excited. So imagine, instead of, I was counting last night, guys. So Vala and Ray, I have 289 passwords today.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know, right? I got a little bit overboard, I know. But imagine that's in the Web2 world. In the Web3 world, I can take that digital identity, and I can use that to sign into a DeFi app, decentralized finance app. I can use that same login and password to sign into a metaverse. Like last night, I was in Atlantis metaverse, which is pretty awesome. I can use that same ID to sign into a Decentraland game or a sandbox fashion show. And so for me, that is so much power. All that data stays with me. It's owned by me. And therefore, I decide if I'm going to sell Salesforce, data about me, or Facebook about me. I get to decide what data I share, what data I don't share, what it's worth to me. And that to me is the biggest difference. Web2 to Web3, it's about ownership of that digital identity and ownership of that data. That's what gets me fired up.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you
That's
also do that for, no, sorry, Val. I was saying you also do that for payments as well, because you also do it for identity and payments. Talk about the payment side, because the payment side is kind of exciting as well, because now that you have identity, we can transact, we can share, we have, provenance of, data, we understand what's happening. So pop it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I am so excited about that too, because we, I always say we have both elements of the flywheel. One is that domain that Ray mentioned, and that domain links into your crypto wallet, your email. So unlike a domain in Web 2, which basically is used for your website, domain in Web 3, I love to say, has superpowers because it not only enables you to do a Web 3 website, but it also enables you to transact business, to pay for things. So no longer, if I'm paying with crypto, do I have to type in that horrendously long set of letters and numbers? I can do sandy.nft, which you see up here on the screen right now. Well, I don't know if you have your domain yet. If you don't, you have to let me give it to you.
Let's go do it.
Yeah, Ray and I need to get on this
you
incredible
gotta
train.
And so then you can use that domain to pay for stuff. So what that does for the person is it makes it really easy. It reduces the mistakes that you might make. So last night I was actually on the phone with a VC, no mind you, who accidentally transferred $52,000 worth of ETH to the wrong address because she typed in one character off.
I'm frightened.
It's scary, right? And she's a tech woman, right? She knows what she's doing. And so had she had, her name.crypto or her name.nft, she could have just used that to ease that pain. And for the partners that integrate with us as well, it's great for them because they're actually building support teams to answer questions from people who accidentally mistype something in. Like, there's really nothing you can do in the crypto world, right? It's all on the chain.
Yeah.
There's no helpline to call into.
No. And the process is not as see, that's what's, when we've had a number of folks talk about, when will we reach tipping point? When will crypto becomes more widely accepted, NFT, Web3, and the fact that you can transfer 17 Ethereum at 52,000, about 17, they're roughly 3,000 and change yesterday. That's unbelievable. One wrong ASCII letter number and gone. It's gone, and that's frightening.
And that's why we are the #1 domain provider in all of Web3 today, because we make it so easy. So you don't make that mistake. And we adhere to that Web3 one-word ownership. You also don't rent it from us or subscribe to it from us. You buy it, it's yours, you own it. Yeah. So if you guys,
how fast are you seeing adoption? Are you seeing just folks ramping up?
We're at 2.2 million domains today. 2.2 million.
Wow.
We are by far the fastest, and that's going to continue to grow with our roadmap and what we're working on. I can't tell you how excited I am about the growth, but also, we heard earlier from your two speakers talk about purpose. This is also a lot of purpose. We are the gateway to Web3 for many people. We are protection against losing a lot of money. We have a purpose that I think is so important. We're protecting your data. Data is yours. It's a purposeful mission, one that I really love.
I love that. Ray, I'm not going to be able to get Vala. I couldn't get it on Twitter. By the time I signed, it was gone, and the person never uses it. They just have Vala.
We gotta get Vala.nft. We gotta get Vala.nft. I'll go for r.nft if we can find r.nft. That'll be fun. RWNG0.
I'll work on it. But if we're live though, right? Probably someone's out there right now trying to buy it.
Oh. Yeah,
we'll see. Yeah.
So go ahead, Ray. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. This is super exciting, right? And the other aspect of this is, you've been there. You've been the Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 transition. What are some ahas that you just go, God, these are things I should have known. I wish if people are just picking this up, here's things that you should know right away that would help people understand, how to navigate this, because we're doing Web 2 to Web 3 transition. We're doing 2D to 3D. We're doing centralization to decentralization. These are big shifts.
Yeah, I would say, one of the big ahas, Ray, for me wasn't actually the technology, but it was the community aspect of Web3. The Web3 community, they use this term WAGMA, which is we're all going to make it. And that is really the mantra. It's really not about Sandy, I'm going to kick your butt, or I, Unstoppable Domains, I'm going to do better than everyone else. Everybody really jumps in and really supports each other, really wants to do the right thing for the community, the business. It's so different than Web 2. And that means like when roadmaps are created, right? At AWS, we would get feedback from customers. We're very customer obsessed.
Sure.
We'd create a roadmap and we'd unveil it, right? And people are like, wow, that's coming. Here, the roadmap is actually done hand in hand with the community. Many DAOs vote on what's in your roadmap. So when you unveil it, it's you and the community. You're now not a user, you're a member. So you have buy-in, and you know that means that the communities that you choose to join, whether that's an NFT community or even support for a company, you're really buying into more than the tech. You're buying into the values of that company. That's one of the reasons I started Unstoppable Women of Web3. I wanted Unstoppable to stand for Web3 for all, not to be restricted to only certain sets of people, but for everybody. And those elements were really important. I did not realize that when I came over, how powerful the community element was.
Wow. And you came from an incredibly powerful community at AWS. And so, you know, someone who's, you know, for last 5-6 years on a rocket ship, hypergrowth company, incredibly influential company, one that's also purpose-driven, one that really appreciates scale, one that has the mantra of working backwards. In other words, you know, starting with the customer needs and inventing and innovating backwards. We had Jeff Bezos' former chief of staff, Colin Breyer, on our show, and he wrote the book, Working Backwards, and how that whole culture of writing memos and being disciplined and having clarity of thought and deep understanding. How does that translate to this world that's being invented in real time? Like, are there any similarities that you see in both worlds? Certainly strong communities is one, but what about the lack of the machinery that Amazon had that you led and you helped grow? Does that discipline and scale and spirit of innovation exist where you are? It must, or you wouldn't be there. I think I know the answer already. But what are some of the similarities in these two spaces that you're in now?
Yeah, I mean, well, one similarity is that we're always working back from the community. So not from the customer, but working backwards from the community. Very similar. In fact, Unstoppable Domains is a big fan club for AWS. We use a very similar interviewing process with a loop. We have people write a narrative. So we're very similar in that way. I would say, though, that a big difference is the rate and pace of change. For Web3 and the metaverse economy, you've got to stay on top of it every day. And if you think about the cloud, like Vala, you know that Salesforce is built on AWS. It does change, but I don't have to I don't actually have to dedicate time every day to find out what's happening. Here I do. Like the innovation is occurring that quickly. So we're changing things and moving much faster than I had in AWS. I know that's hard to believe.
Wow. One of the fastest innovating companies in the world.
And it's, again, not just our technology that's innovating. It's the ecosystem, that whole ecosystem that's innovating and that's moving at the same time. I would say that other similarities are, you know, that purpose-driven value system. I think that's a very big similarity. Basing on certain technologies like blockchain, another, you know, big similarity. AWS has a blockchain set of technologies as well. So that's a similarity. I would say also that the functional skill sets translate. So I had a ton of Web 2 folks who are coming over to work with me now. And I look for those functional skills, the marketing skill, the technology skill, the sales skill, the business development skill. All of those come over and translate. You may have to tweak it a little bit, but definitely come over and translate as well.
That's awesome. You're so courageous. I just think about
on your show every day just to pump myself.
I'm just reflecting as you're speaking. I'm like an incredibly successful executive at an incredibly successful company, one of a handful of $1 trillion market cap companies, and true spirit of innovation pulled you towards this incredible next chapter, which is it just takes incredible courage, and it also speaks volumes about the technology and the community and what our future is going to be all about. I think, as usual, you're 10 steps ahead of most of us. So congratulations to you.
Well, and I would say thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much. I would say I left my AWS team in great hands. My team was spectacular. So I know they're doing magnificent things over there. I would also say that we are hiring very rapidly, and we're not having problems hiring either. Web3 is so popular. So I just was reading last night, the increase in Web3 developers between Web2 and Web3 have gone up by 61%. I know from your book, Ray, that's one of the things you looked for was just how many developers are coming over, how many engineers are coming over.
Wow.
And so yeah, maybe I help lead the pack in some of those areas, but the movement to Web3, this is why I know it's real. This is why I know we are all going to make it. I do believe very firmly that what we're doing is, whatever you call it, there's so many different names for it. It is real. I believe very firmly it is going to disrupt companies and markets, and it is creating a gazillion opportunities out there today. That's what I really believe. Are we early? Yes. I like to say we're in the dial-up phase of Web3 and the metaverse, but there is magic here. The future is here.
Do you think every Web2 company today is going to get disrupted by a Web3 version of itself?
Maybe a Web3 version of itself, or maybe they're going to have to disrupt themselves. And I can't, you would not believe the number of Web2 companies. Because I worked at Amazon, almost all of my old customers and my old partners are reaching out, and they're like, we can't be left behind. And because of the community aspect, they're like, we don't want to make a mistake, because we see Web2 companies coming in, making a mistake, and then the community, crucifying them for that. And so if the number of Web2 companies coming over is any indication, I think it's going to be interesting. I was also talking to Janet, who's chairman of the board for Deloitte.
Yeah.
Her fastest growing practice is her blockchain Web3 practice, not for Web3 companies, for Web2 companies.
Web2 companies. Wow.
We are seeing that transition. I mean, getting to Web3 libraries and DApps is very different. The smart contracts are kind of important because it's kind of the engine. The nodes and the Web3 providers are all over the place. And of course, wallets, like everyone's trying to figure that out. Contracts, nodes, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's all those things. And it's a very different way of thinking. But hey, Sandy, thank you so much for being here today. You're shedding some light to what's going on out here in the world. And more importantly, really congratulations on all the success. So.
Thank you for being a trailblazer. Thank you.
And thank you for having me on DisrupTV. It's
our pleasure.
Sure. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Bob, we have to get our NFT.
Ray, we got to rebrand this to Web3 Disrupt. I don't know. We got at least get our .NFT or .eth, or we got to. Well, I got to speak for myself, not you, but I'm behind. Okay,
I got to get going.
Let's talk about an incredibly important topic, one that I experienced myself prior to joining Salesforce. Mark Sirower is author of Synergy Solutions and Deloitte U.S. lead for M&A and Restructuring. Mark is a U.S. leader in Deloitte's M&A and Restructuring practice, where he joined in 2008 to launch the M&A strategy practice. Mark has advised senior executive teams on hundreds of transactions over 25 years, from strategy and diligence through post-merger integration. Previously, Mark built the deal strategy group at PwC and was global leader of the M&A practice at the Boston Consulting Group. Mark has taught M&A at Wharton School and for 30 years, and at NYU Stern School Executive MBA program. He's the author of M&A, the Synergy Trap. His new book is The Synergy Solution: How Companies Win the Merger and Acquisition Game. You can follow him on Twitter at Mark L. Sirower, Sirower. Welcome, Mark, to DisrupTV.
Thank you so much, Ray and Vala. It's a delight to be here and a thrill to be living through this period of M&A activity.
Mark, we are seeing a ton of M&As, and part of that is really when we think about what's going on. Your hurdle rate is 15%. If you're not getting 15% in the marketplace, people and the boards are saying, hey, look, return some money, do some buybacks, dividends, or do a merger and acquisition. And people are trying to keep up with that. And this has been going on for quite some time. It's one of the biggest runs in M&A activity probably in decades, right? So we've been sitting in this boom, and it's only going to continue. When we put that into the backdrop, I mean, we're seeing 50%, less than 50% of deals delivered on promised value. I mean, what's going on with post-merger integration, or what's happening? I mean, did they just get it wrong? Was it a culture thing? Was it a tech thing? Was it a business model thing? I mean, there's so many ways this could go wrong.
Yeah, well, it's all of them. And what we try to do in the Synergy solution is bring topics like culture, strategy, valuation, change. And while they're important topics, they're not standalone topics. They're intimately connected right from the very beginning. And you mentioned like M&A activity. We just had our $5 trillion quarter in a row. And one of the things that we saw in 2021, because we'd already been living through an extraordinary period of M&A activity by any historical measure. I mean, this is the biggest merger wave in industrial history. It's the fourth merger wave I've lived through. 2021, we saw the large deals double. The value of deals went up by 60%, but the volume of deals only went up by 26%. So why is that? Deals over $1 billion doubled in 2021. And when we start to see that, we see the wave shape. And as a strategist, you say, well, what does a merger wave mean? You only get a merger wave one of two ways. Either companies that hadn't been acquisitive start doing deals, or deals that had been companies that had been acquisitive start doing more or bigger ones. And that's what we're seeing. And in these sort of times at historically high market values, there's this injection of inexperience into the market, whether you've never done them before or now you're doing bigger deals. And so these are they're exciting times, but they're tumultuous. Because you're putting up all this capital, you're paying it all up front before you can even touch the wheel. You mentioned post-merger integration. Post-merger is the wrong time to do pre-merger planning. And and
that's the quote of the day.
That's it. I mean, and that is actually one of the themes of the book. It's a connected end-to-end experience, intimately connected, that starts at the very beginning. And just to go a little further, we think of capital as luxurious. In other words, capital implies promises. It has a cost. So we counsel executives while time is on your side, because once you start negotiating a deal and you're maybe a month away from signing and then you're 2 or 3 months away from close, things get moving really quickly. And that cost to capital clock starts ticking right at close. So, we caution executives at these times to treat capital like it's luxurious. It's expensive to touch. It has a cost. And so when you think about capital that way, there's smart things to do with capital and less smart things to do with capital, which means M&A is about growth, but more important, it's about choices. You've got to make difficult choices about what's most important for the growth of your business or businesses. What are your priority pathways for growth, and what's the landscape of opportunities along those pathways, so that you're making careful choices about what you want and why and how you're going to deliver the value once that cost to capital clock starts ticking.
In your book, Synergy Solutions, you studied deal performance of over 1,000 deals. When you look at these deals, what do companies often overlook when it comes to the due diligence process? Again, my company was acquired by a competitor, equal size company, which actually in my experience made it much more difficult to make decisions. But as I recall the due diligence process, I always felt we just didn't have enough time, data, and mutual understanding of each other to really make well-informed decisions. But what are some of the things that are often overlooked?
Yeah, let me tell you the main some key results of the study that we did. We looked at $5 trillion of deals over 24 years, 3 different merger waves, over $1 trillion of premiums. And we were very interested in the announcement effects. How did investors react to an announcement, and how did those companies do over the course of a year? We peer adjusted the findings. And what we found is 60% of deals are met with a negative market reaction, and 40% of deals are met with a positive market reaction. But there are still CEOs and market observers that say, well, market reactions don't matter. You don't judge the success of a deal on the short-term change in the market price. So what we did is we tested that. And we followed the positive market reaction portfolio over time, and we followed the negative reaction portfolio. And if market reactions didn't matter, what should happen? They should both trend to zero, and they don't. Positive market reaction portfolio stays strongly positive. The negative reaction portfolio stays strongly negative. So market reactions really matter. I'm going to get to what market reactions mean, and then we'll talk about diligence, because that's what's happening right before you get there.
Sure.
Yep.
And then what we did is we de-averaged more, because all M&A studies are on average. So we looked at the positives that stayed positive. They did really well. They had a great return. And the negatives that stayed negative, and 2/3 of negative reaction companies stay negative. And for stock deals, it's closer to 75% that don't turn around. Those negative deals that started negative and stayed negative did really bad. And the difference between the two, what we call the persistence spread, was 60 percentage points. A 60 percentage point, not 60%, 60 percentage point difference in returns. It's huge. And so, as an executive or a market observer, you say, well, yeah, I would much rather have a positive market reaction than a negative one, for sure. But because what do market reactions mean? It's a fundamental change in the growth value of your company. Imagine you're $1 billion acquirer and your share price takes a 10% hit. That's $100 million. And let's say that $1 billion, you can divide it between the capitalized current performance. Let's call it 500 million. And the other 500 million is future growth. That 10% hit in your share price, that 100 million, is 100 million off that 500 million of future growth. It's a 20% hit to the growth value of your company. That's what market reactions are. It's a fundamental change in the growth value of the company. We all, everybody says M&A should be about creating value. That's what we really mean. Are you changing the growth value of your company, positive or negative? And so your question on diligence then is, diligence cannot just be about a go or no go decision. It's fundamentally about testing the assumptions that somebody's putting in that valuation model. Because that valuation model, that is your business plan, whether you like it or not, because you're paying for it. And somebody knows those numbers, those synergy numbers. And so it's fundamentally about testing those assumptions, but also, and just as important, an early integration roadmap of what you're going to do once you announce the deal. I don't know how you do a valuation model without having a roadmap. Right. What's the size of the synergies, the timing? Some are going to come early, some are going to come a little bit later. What are the complexities of them? What are the one-time costs? No synergy comes for free. When you start worrying about that, after you announce a deal, that's got to be thought through so you can start your sign to close planning immediately after you've announced it, because everybody's watching. Announcement day, that day when markets react. And it's not just markets, by the way. It's customers, suppliers, your employees. You're bumping them down their hierarchy of needs. They wonder, do I have a job? Right. Do I have to move? Are even my day-to-day technology platforms, are they changing? What's going to happen to my career path? So all these stakeholders are listening, regulators. So you have to be able to send a signal to markets and everyone that's listening that you have a plan.
So Mark, before we go down the 5 elements and other parts of the book, if you're a large billionaire that builds rockets and electric vehicles and decided to get into the social media business.
I knew it was going to go there. I knew it was going to go there.
Social media business. What would you make advice, right? In a generic sense.
That's a generic sense. Acquisitions. There's no redundant CMO, CIO workforce.
So as I cross my arm, I can't comment on specific deals, but
no problem. Hey,
but I can't talk about stock versus cash deals. But that's a different.
But let me invert it. Let me invert it another way. Like a lot of what you're doing on the M&A side actually got me thinking about how people were doing SPACs. Right? SPACs are basically a form of M&A. Right? And we think about prepared acquire and a reactor and how we put this together. I mean, the due diligence process might be a little bit different for a SPAC, right, as opposed to a traditional M&A, because you've got to build pipe, right? If you don't have pipe on the back end, then you're that's part of the due diligence, right? Would that be how you would read that?
So I'm a first principles guy, so I'm going to stick to first principles, which is if you're putting up capital, it's got a cost. I don't care the vehicle it's coming from. If it's a smart thing to do, you got to get that cost of capital return. Not just so think about a company just as a standalone. It's got its current operations today. So in diligence, you're testing what's the stability of its recurring revenues, but then it's got this growth value. So you have to first decide, do I want to be even an investor in that company? Forget about paying a premium.
Forget the shiny objects.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then, but if I'm going to pay a 20, 30, or 40% premium for that, I'm creating a brand new business performance problem that never existed before. And not only didn't it exist before, nobody ever expected. When you pay a 20 or 30% premium for a company, it's a shock to the system. And investors are expecting a plan. And it can't be, oh, it's going to be a little bit of growth in perpetuity. It's got to be a 2 to 3 year ramp up that shows that you can really justify that premium, whether it's a SPAC or whether it's a publicly traded acquire, regularly publicly traded acquirer.
Mark, you talked. Yeah. So, by the way, the question you had previously about the person involved in what he's doing, he's all about first principles. All his decisions are based on that, and he often speaks about that. You mentioned the importance of effective communication to shareholders, to stakeholders. What makes an effective communication? What are the ingredients you need to include in that, especially the initial communication, in order to ensure that the stakeholders have confidence and optimism in terms of 1 + 1 is going to equal 3?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll take you back to announcement day. So we think of announcement day that it serves 3 important functions. And it is a lot about communication strategy if you've done the preparation to get there. So the first big function is think of preparing for announcement day. Think like an investor. So put yourself in the shoes of investors. So think of preparing for announcement day as your last stop in diligence. And for boards, it's the fundamental question is, how is this deal going to affect our share price and why? How is it going to affect the fundamental growth value of our company? The second function is not just investors, but everybody's listening. So everything you say is fodder for customers, suppliers, employees, regulators, and so understand
competitors. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've had we had a large company once that said every time they announce a major deal, it's like a competitor parade going after their customers. They're not going to serve you well. It's going to be 18 months over there. We'll get you better deals, and not only that, but competitors will poach your best talent. They know who the best talent is.
Totally.
It's right away, and so employees are wondering, do I stick this out, or do I take a better deal? So we're communicating with employees, customers, and suppliers. Suppliers are wondering, well, are they going to try to do better deals now that get procurement synergies off of us? So they're worried about that as well. And certainly regulators, because the time to start thinking about what you might have to divest is not when the regulators tell you. It's while you're thinking about the deal. Start thinking about the pieces you might have to divest and what it's going to take and how much it's going to cost to separate those pieces. Separations are very expensive. You're untangling, a division from the company. So, and then the third function, and this is just as important as the others, culture starts on announcement. We position that really hard in the book. The employee experience has to start right after announcement day, because, like I said, you're bumping them down their hierarchy of needs. And so they have a lot of questions. You have to acknowledge their concerns. You tell them what you can, but then you also tell them, when you can tell them the other things they worry about. Tell them what you can't tell them right away. And time box those answers. If you're going to announce a new organizational structure in a month, announce the new organizational structure in a month. You're sort of borrowing trust you haven't yet earned. So this is all, wrapped up in how we think about communications.
I love the structured approach, right? I mean, this is not just like, we're going to do a transactional deal. I mean, there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of art. There's a lot of like experience, high finance.
A lot of culture.
And so the post-close execution phase of this M&A process that you're talking about, I mean, this is neglected. Why is this neglected? Right? Given the number of deals that are out there.
It's hard.
And the deals that are failing,
Yeah. So it's a great question. And if you allow me, I'll take you through. So we position post-close execution as a series of transitions. And so if you haven't done the sign to close work that you need to do, you're not going to be able to make these transitions. But you're going from this integration management office, which is this decision-making machine that you launch right after announcement. That IMO has to go away and become business as usual. We're taking the organizational design work, and that becomes talent selection and workforce transition. All the synergy planning that you've done sign to close, all the initiatives and projects and owners and one-time costs, that has to then transition to tracking and reporting. All the work you did in clean rooms around revenue synergies, well, that has to go into the customer experience and your actual changes in go-to-market strategy. And finally, all the work that you did in the employee experience has to then transition to culture and change. And so you're very clear. You don't just use the fluffy bunny word culture. It means something. It's broken into the real changes that different employee groups are going to face, how they're going to change, how work's going to change, et cetera. So post-close execution, again, it's structured. It's got to be, because there are very clear issues that you've identified, signed to close, that you now have to operationalize quickly, because that cost of capital clock is ticking on all that capital you've invested.
Mark, my last question, putting the CEO aside, looking at these 1,000+ deals, if you had to, it's a table with 3 legs, and each leg represents an executive line of business. Is it the CHRO, CFO, CMO, the communication, the talent, and the finances leaders that have the strongest impact, whether it's going to be a positive outcome or negative, or it's a complete team sport and every line of business leader needs to have skin in the game?
It's a complicated question, because if it's a significant deal that will be material to your share price, then you don't have a lot of people under the tent early on, because you want to manage leaks. That said, I'll tell you the things you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear, and these are things we've heard so many times over the years. You don't want to hear post announcement while you're doing the planning. You don't want you want to hear an executive say, "I raised this before we did the deal." You know what I mean? You're like, yeah, I love you. That's a great synergy target, but I told you we couldn't do it, right? Like that you don't want to hear. And the other one, and this is the big one, and just from this conversation, this shouldn't be a surprise. You see a head of HR sit back and they say, "I'm just coming to terms with how much work this is going to be."
Oh my God.
Right before close is not the time that you want to hear that. You want people.
I'm so familiar with those phrases. Yes.
You want that well before announcement. That's part of your diligence process. It's just how much change is going to be required.
The synergy between due diligence and change management impacts the outcome of these deals. I mean, if there's anything we learned here, this is amazing. So Mark, thank you so much. We're here with Mark Sirower, author of Synergy Solution and Deloitte's U.S. lead for M&A and Restructuring, a big practice. Follow him on Twitter at Mark L. Sirower. Thank you for that. I can tell you there are tons of tech CEOs listening to this conversation. They're going to know who to call. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ray and Vala. It's been a delight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Happy Friday. Whew. Wow, Vala. We're blown away.
Purpose-led marketing. Importance of adaptive IT. We went from read-only to read-write to read-write-own Web 3. And M&As are hard. I mean, if you haven't lived through it, I don't think most people have any idea how hard it is. And I'm not just talking about the numbers and the structures, but the emotional drain. Because, most M&As, eventually you do have to make talent decisions. And there are redundancies, especially if you're not acquiring a completely new muscle that you didn't have. If there's any sort of overlap, you have redundancies. So if you're a growth company, maybe you can absorb that cost. But often that's not the case. So while you're thinking so hard about how to bring value to market, you're also making really difficult decisions. So this is where the grays come from. This is if you've ever gone through one, it's going to war. It's going to battle. Anyway, Ray, next week is episode 278. We just crossed our 850 interviews in the life of DisrupTV at 854 is our current number. Next week, I say that because we're getting close to 900. Anil Sherian, AVP Strategy and Technology at Cognizant, will join us. We have Casey Coleman, a brilliant mind, Senior Vice President of Global Government Solutions at Salesforce, and a surprise guest we're going to announce somewhere during the middle of the week next week. So, Ray, your closing thoughts on 4 extraordinary business leaders who are on episode 277.
You know, I feel like this is the part of car talk where like they do stump the chump. But hey, no, look, the theme here, if everyone figured out, was really about transformation. And what we've seen is really the CIO and the CMO, that's one transformation to get work done, right? And it's very, very important. That critical piece between IT and business leaders is something that we're seeing. And at a personal scale, that's important. But we're also seeing a massive transformation in terms of this Web 2 to Web 3.0 infrastructure. And what Sandy was sharing was really just the tip of the iceberg of all these massive changes that we're going to see as part of what we call the $20.7 trillion metaverse economy when we size that. But along the way, to make this happen, you got to pay for these things, and mergers and acquisitions are going to be the way to get here. So we see different things, right? You do the deal, you know, you do something new and organically, or you work together actually to make this happen. And that's what we learned today here on DisrupTV. So back to you, Vala.
Incredible. Well, if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.